All right, so after I talked to my customer yesterday and sent the drawing to him that I showed you guys, he kind of had some ideas, talked it over with his wife. We had a little bit of a conference call this morning and made a few revisions and stuff and agreed on what it is that we're going to do with it. And I even had a typo in the phone number that they caught and corrected, which is good. So I'm going to take my revised drawing now and I'm going to start roughing it out on my big piece of paper, show you guys a little bit of that. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with the entire deal on it, but you'll kind of see how I'm working. I'm actually going to start with some charcoal, just kind of getting big shapes out real light because I can erase that off real fast and it's easy to do. And then after that, I'll start refining it with pencils and rulers and whatnot. So let's get going. Show you something that I got to work on here real quick. Math is kind of a big deal. I mean, I sketched all this out loosely with Vine charcoal, and then off of that, figured out the math for where this actually sits. That way, everything's going to be centered. Some numbers, like there's going to be a number 1 right here, and then 2 fatter numbers. Some are skinnier than others. So because of that, my gap here in the middle is not exactly spaced out with all my number spaces. So I got to figure out that real quick. So what I did, the 3 numbers that are there, just as wide as the 3 numbers I've already drawn here. So I took that measurement, which is 5 1/4. The gap between here and here is 9 5/8. So I'm going to subtract that. That's going to give me, excuse me, it's going to give me how much extra there is. I'll take that and I'll divide it by 2. I know it's like crazy math stuff, but that's how I'll know how much space to put in between those 3 letters. So they're centered up in between these, and then I'm probably just going to put some dots to fill the space there. But just letting you know, math is a big part of this. I'm going to get back to work here. I'll come back to this, or I'll come back to y'all whenever this is drawn out. So. These letters are 3 inches tall. This block is going to be 3.5 inches tall. We're going to make it look like pipe at the ends, probably with some water dripping out of, I think, this side. And it might change. It might be that side on one side of the truck and the other side on the other side of the truck. Not 100% sure on that right now, but I want my letters to be the same, or yeah, my letters up here to be the same height as my numbers. So I'm going to go through, figure out that difference, which of course is a 1/2 inch. So I'll have 1/4 inch up here and 1/4 inch down here. For the tops of my letters, it's going to say Plumbing Solutions. I'm going to go ahead and get working on that. I am here. I've got all my measurements measured off. I measured from one side and then measured back from the other side because there's a little bit of a difference, but that's all right because it's going to fall into my gap between words. These are, let's see if I can remember, 1 3/4 inches wide, but there's a space in between them. So I leave a little bit of space. You can see on these here, it ends up becoming, I think, what is it, 1/4 inch? Yeah. So it's 1/8 inch on each side. I'm going to go ahead and draw my little line here. This one, I don't know if you guys can see it. My hand's probably in the way doing that. My next letter here is plumbing, or is L, in the word plumbing. Something I noticed when I did my number 1 over here is I kind of like making, on a thin letter like that, making the, I don't even know what the word's called for it, the large vertical part of it a little bit wider. I'm going to keep this width down here. Well, no, I'm going to add to it just a little bit on my height of this horizontal part. But something I know is the letter L is a little bit shorter than these other ones. So where it would have come to here, I'm going to cut it back just a little bit more. Probably to about there. I'm really just eyeballing it. I don't have like a mathematical equation for a lot of this stuff. If it looks good to the eye, I'm going with it. I might be wrong on doing things that way. I don't know. I've pretty much taught myself most stuff where drawing out letters and signs is concerned. A lot of what I've learned, in all honesty, comes from books. You know, I mentioned it earlier, but books like this, I feel like I've learned more from those than I have from watching videos or talking to other people or anything else. But yeah, so I've got the one letter. Couple of tricks, and it's kind of why I was showing you guys this. I started off using a regular mechanical pencil to draw my measurements, to draw my top and bottom lines for lining all these up. But as I come through and figure them out, I'm actually using a 6B pencil to do the final lines on it. You can see down here with these, like the 2 and stuff, that's my mechanical pencil line there, and then this is much darker. That'll help me out when I get ready to transfer this onto my surface, in this case the truck door. So what is my next letter? Next letter. So I'm actually going to come over those first measurement lines that I put down are kind of just the guide, because again, some letters are skinnier than others, some are fatter than others. We're coming up to an M, which is definitely going to be bigger than my letter L that I just made. That's kind of what I'm doing for this, since it's 2 words. I was a little bit more mathematical down here with the 3 things and spacing out that center one, but I only have plumbing and solution. So I'm going to start one word coming from this way, start the other word coming back from this way, and just let the gap in the middle be what it is. It's probably a better way to do it. Sometimes I get that done and I don't really like it, so I'll actually cut the words out and scoot them together or farther away. It's okay because it's just paper and it's getting transferred. I want to figure it all out here before I put it in paint. I'm going to go ahead and keep doing this. Well, if you guys have questions about anything, put them down in the comments. I might not have the answers, but maybe somebody else who watches these videos does and would be willing to share with us. Maybe we'll both learn. I just realized a mistake. I knew that my U looked skinny, but I couldn't figure out why, and it's because I went with 1.5 inches on width here instead of 1 3/4 inches. So I gotta erase this, come back and fix those. Not fun, but better to catch it now. Okay, I noticed another mistake that I made that I'm coming back to fix, but it gives me a good time to show you guys something too. I cut strips of, it's like a heavy cardstock. I guess it's a little heavier than that, really thin cardboard. I get these from my backing boards for prints. Whenever I chop them down, save the extra, and it becomes these kind of spacers. They are, this one right here is what I'm using for my widths for all my letters. I cut a smaller one, or skinnier one, it's probably 3/16 inch skinnier, for my diagonals on this M right here. And I'm going to see if I can really make sure y'all can see this. Okay, my letter M here, I made a little bit of a mistake. So the top, or well, here's the bottom, right? It's the width of the stem. The top should be a little bit wider. What I'm aiming for, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, the gap that I have here is the same gap that I want to have for this V up here. So I measured that, I measured this distance, subtract the difference, divide it by 2, right? To give me this dot that I have here and this dot that I have here. When I go to measure or to draw my diagonals, I'm lining one edge up with that dot, the opposite edge up with my center dot. Okay, come in, draw that, go over here, draw there, Okay, straighten this back up since I erased part of it. Straighten this top part here. All these mistakes start to make things look a little sloppy. More experienced person at doing signs probably doesn't make as many mistakes as me, but I'm kind of somewhat self-taught here. Always learning. That's why I hope people who are watching this that know more than me will comment and teach me something. I don't really always look at these as tutorials, but I guess it's kind of becoming that. So again, this side of the piece of paper that I have here goes to the center dot, opposite side to that other dot. That M looks a whole lot better now. We're going to go ahead and erase some of the excess that's in here. I like it a lot more. A whole lot more. It's interesting looking M. I got to do the end too. Might as well do that while I'm sitting here talking to you guys and showing you that. This time I'm not adding that width up there. I'm going to go ahead and put that side there. I'm going to put this opposite side on the bottom corner of the other stem. The one thing that's going to be uniform now is going to be these gaps. We want those gaps uniform. Makes things look a whole lot nicer. Again, I know there's people out there with a lot more knowledge and a lot more skill than I have. Some of them will teach classes, some of them will put stuff on YouTube, but a lot won't, and I just like showing people what it is that I'm doing. Not necessarily that what I do is the correct way, but this is how I go about doing it. I know there's faster ways, more accurate ways to do some stuff, but I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit back and not do something just because I don't already know ahead of time. I'll figure it out while I'm going sometimes. That's where I've learned a lot of the stuff that I've learned, and I keep applying and it keeps seeming to work. I'm going to keep going on this. Probably won't film that part, but I'll come back to it when it's done, and I'll show you how I figure out that top part. Okay, so I have my lettering done here. I've got the pipe shape that the lettering's going to fit in. Next, I need to figure out my script for the top. I don't like the gap that I have right now in between the letters, which I mentioned before is okay, because what I'll end up doing when this is all done, I'll actually take a blade, cut this part out, cut a section out here in the middle, and just shrink it down. Knowing that I'm going to do that, I feel like my letter margins are going to come in. So I had these as my margins for the name of the company. I'm going to bring those in a little bit more too, and rather than sit here and measure stuff out exactly, I'm just going to take the width of a ruler, create myself some margins, and then what I like to do whenever I'm doing script, I'm going to use the same ruler to give myself at least a starting point here. Right. I like to go ahead and take my charcoal again and just kind of rough it out. I'll come back and clean it up and fix it up later. I'm going to use my drawing that I have here as a guide, so I'm going to put it off to the side. I'm just going to start kind of roughing it in. I'll come back later with a little bit of math and make it more accurate, but for now I just kind of want to figure out about how it needs to look. Again, I'm kind of The nice thing about this charcoal is rather than having to break out an eraser or anything, I can just sit here and kind of change it with my finger. My paper's a little dirtier than it could be, but it really doesn't matter. At least not to me in the end. By doing this way, I might find that some things need to be skinnier, and I can just go through and change them. And I just came into the fact that, yeah, it does need to be skinnier. So I'm not mentally holding on to any of this. Leaves a little bit of a ghost for me to come back to. Just erase the whole thing and start over. It really doesn't take that much time. By the way, this is a piece of chamois cloth that I've cut down that I'm using as an eraser. If you're drawing with charcoal, you can actually use chamois to blend stuff, but in this case I'm just using it to take some of this off. We're gonna make this a little bit more narrower than it was. Still like this kind of bring that C in. Something like that. Now again, this is all really rough with charcoal. I'm gonna erase it a little bit. Come back with the charcoal one more time. Start figuring out my widths on stuff. And then I'll come back later with the pencil. I'm gonna come figure out these bottoms. So when I do this, I know that pipeline is there. It's actually pretty darn close to the bottom of those letters to go one width here. So I'm gonna take my pencil, draw me a line there. It's gonna become my bottoms. That line is gonna be a guide. I'm looking at my gap here and my gap here, and if those are right, then it's close enough to parallel, or parallel? Yeah, parallel for me. I guess I should measure it, but that's my laziness. So now I can see that C's a little high, the U needs to come up some. Seems like on these R's, this part can come up a little. This part can come above it. My S probably come down a little bit, but again, it's okay if it comes up above it. I think I want it to come up the same amount as that. My H can come up to this. These look pretty good. Bring that S down a little bit. Guy down just a little bit. This, again, I think it's okay if it dips below it. Since everything else is, maybe it needs that for balance, maybe. And we'll just do it here. Maybe what I need to do is dip that down a lot more. Come way back up. To give it some more weight. I don't know. Let's try it and see. like it. Starting to feel if we're going to do that, we need a little bit of weight here. Got to remember too, it's going to be in gold leaf. I don't really like it. I like that it brings weight down, but I don't think it does it in the right way. Maybe if that came even more. See, I feel like that's too crazy. I don't know. Maybe the reason I don't like it is this part's not wide enough. See, now that makes this look too skinny. I think we're getting too crazy here. Let's get some of this off. I don't know. Okay if it's messy here. Doesn't really matter. It's cool if it looks fancy, but at the same time it still has to be an H. And I think we were better off without getting too fancy there. I'm going to go through, clean that up with pencil, knock that down some. I've got a little bit of graphic stuff to add to the end of this, but overall this is how I go about designing a door sign. Time wise, I think yesterday, and sometimes I go a lot faster than this, a whole lot faster depending on what somebody wants. I just remembered I got to figure out the script down here that says Grand Prairie, Texas on it. But I'll get that done. What I was saying, this one's actually taken me quite a bit of time, but we had revisions on it. We really kind of planned things out a lot from scratch. A lot of the doors that I do, people already have a sign that they want something similar to, so it cuts out what was basically about a half a day of figuring stuff out on this. Usually only ends up taking, in those cases, about a half a day to get it all drawn up. Some of them, if they want casual letters and script, it goes a whole lot faster because I'm not sitting here measuring everything out so much. But for a block kind of letter, I like to figure it out with math. I'm going to end this part of this video. Like I said, we're going to make it a multi-part video. Next video, you'll start off seeing the finished version of this. We'll transfer it to the truck. Go ahead and start planning out some of the other lettering on the truck maybe, or lay the size for the gold. Not sure which one, and gold leaf that. But this might end up being a 3, maybe 4 video series here. Something I haven't done before. Hopefully it'll be cool. Y'all tell me if you like that. Talk to you later.